So I know that I've opined before on how I think we're entering a new feudal age. But more so than that, I think we're going to enter another sort of 17th century I see, I don't think it'll be necessarily super apocalyptic, but I think that the crises of meaning that really a lot of people are facing in developed countries, or more developed countries anyway, is going to lead to a breaking point eventually. I am completely bearish on AI. I think that the sort of bet on AI to paper over all the problems that we're about to encounter, really all it has actually done has been a sedative that drove like the CEOs of these places insane. Don't get me wrong, I actually engage with AI quite regularly, and from a philosophical angle, I talk to the demon, right, or the oracle. Demon in like the most traditional Greek sense. I think it's fascinating, but it's actually remarkable how little information you can really glean from the AI. I mean, I still like it. I think it's a great foil, to a good sounding board, especially since it has sort of infinite patience in a certain way, and but it's a problem that I find that when you really are trying to drill down philosophical questions with AI, it eventually just kind of starts to eat its own tail and becomes kind of incoherent. At least in my experience, it's coherent, but it just repeats itself. It's like it never actually, eventually it gets to a point where it can never really address what you're saying. It kind of refers to different points in the conversation that are prior to what you're actually trying to address. It's a very strange situation, but it's certainly very convincing to someone who maybe is willing to examine it less. It is very useful, especially now in the sense that it's sort of a more useful Google search. Maybe Google search used to be incredibly useful back before a lot of search engine optimization sort of destroyed the internet. But now I feel like we've kind of come full circle, where the AI kind of cuts through the search engine optimization, and so it's like, if you actually want your search to return some results, I find myself using AI successfully that way, where it's like, give me some solutions to this problem, and it goes through and it'll give me like 4 or 5 different forum posts that I can kind of choose from and be like, okay, maybe this, whatever. But aside from all that, a new 17th century in the way that I think that less so than fighting over like the particular divinity of Christ or whatever in the European wars of religion and stuff like that. We're just going to be kind of fighting over meaning at all. And I think that it'll be like way more brutal in some ways, but way less organized, or way less way more sporadic. It'll be like like a civilization-wide South Africa scenario or Zimbabwe scenario. Maybe with less of the racial angle explicitly, but that'll certainly be a part of it too. I mean, many people idolize their blood, worship their blood, right? And I think that you can hold your blood in esteem, and you should esteem it, but there's a sort of proper hierarchy to those things. Either way, I've been wrong before. I did think that the Russian invasion of Ukraine was going to lead to mass starvation in the third world, and that didn't happen. And I could only see that leading to massive chaos. But with this Iran situation, that's kind of, I think that'll be like the first really big domino to tip over, is going to be the starvation of the third world, because the third world exists basically at the mercy of global logistics, as far as I understand it. And if global logistics is paralyzed, then, I mean, we didn't teach these men to fish, really. There are some that do. I've seen actually some pretty interesting sub-Saharan agricultural projects where they are native sub-Saharans engaging in agriculture, and I thought it was interesting. But by and large, I don't think a lot of these places are self-sustaining. And what a tragedy if the world does starve. But on some level, I kind of think the only way out of all of this is through it. All of this kind of stuff. And I think that of the people who are basically, who better than us to inherit the earth afterwards, right? I mean, I've been preaching the end of this whole paradigm for 10 years now. This will be about the 10th year, and some people say that's to my credit, whereas I have my doubts. I might have egg on my face. Part of making predictions is keeping yourself accountable too, right? If you put a prediction out in the world, it's to stop yourself from just saying whatever, right? Just saying anything willy-nilly. And I predicted in 2016 or before then that the wheels were coming off of this thing, and we'll see if I'm right or wrong. It's there are so many variables and so many things that I could not have foreseen. But this meaning crisis, it may be less that you'll have armies of Protestants going up against armies of Catholics. Less that, and more that you just have roving bands of nihilistic youths, Clockwork Orange style, with no real, and that will become like sort of the prevailing situation. You'll have tax farmed human cattle that, occasionally need to go engage in a bit of the old ultra violence, or else they simply will start bouncing off their cubicle walls, and they'll have to go out there and wander out into the hinterlands and find prey animals out there to victimize, and it's kind of terrifying in a certain type of way, because I certainly am not planning at all to be one of those tax farmed cattle, and I think that I don't believe that it was a conspiracy or necessarily planned, but I definitely think that the iPad babies of the world are going to be like the perfect tax cattle for these, sort of automated positions where they're piloting a drone that's completing some kind of task, and they receive dopamine injections from performing their task well. Either way, I think I think we're coming up to a paradigm shattering change in how the world operates. And if we're lucky, we can get another sort of Westphalian system out of it, which I think would be wonderful, because Lord knows that whole way of operating has been dead for a while. And hopefully we can, I think that will be the single biggest important thing to come of it, is we definitely need a leadership reset in these countries, and a financial rebirth, right? These things, I sort of believe in the fact that everything kind of goes through seasons eternally, and it's really difficult for me not to believe that we're not in the winter of this broader civilization. But though winter might be difficult, our ancestors have been planning their way through winters for a long time, and those people, those squirrels who stow their acorns for winter and don't forget where they put their acorns, they make it to spring, and spring is such a wonderful time indeed. Oh, and on that note, happy Easter. It's April right now, so just a couple thoughts.